And here we focus on what unites their experience, the building blocks of life. What do you do all day? One of my favorite questions. What do you do all day? This is the question that bypasses all the bullshit in life. What happens? Your thought process dies and is restarted. And of course, totally not accurate computer terms. This problem remains invisible because it always hides from itself. This overloaded concept just turns into a mental black hole. First, you must accept the fact that everyone is wrong about almost everything. Wrong and confusing relations will vanish and new ones will be born in your brain. Then we use this model to reframe everything from love to money to smartphones and hopefully make you immune to the fall. Hi, I'm Kalin, 8-figure startup founder. A lot of my success I attribute, I kid you not, to language, but not the languages I know because I only know English, but the use of language. And I promise that if you watch this video till the end, you'll change the way you view language forever. George Carlin said that we think in language, and the quality of our thoughts and ideas can only be as good as the quality of our language. And he was a great master of language. I greatly recommend watching his old but golden comedy shows. If you have read other I Grow Younger content in text or video before, you may have noticed that we differ from other self-help content. We have less storytelling and a lot of ideas and concepts, but also the way we present our content is different. There is something different in our language, and that's on purpose to help you build intuition about everything. People are different, but live by the same principles. And here we focus on what unites their experience, the building blocks of life. One of them is that we all use language, although slightly differently. I Grow Younger is built on the science that the way that we think, read, and write, including about self-improvement, is both driven by the language we use and limited by it. And every concept must have a word for it. It doesn't really exist. But there is more. There's more hidden traps in language. The big problem that we have identified is that some words gradually started to represent more than a word is biologically capable of representing. Yes, the object of a word must have a biological representation somewhere in the brain, some structure or neurons and connections. We don't really understand the brain that well, but we can all agree that words don't just come from nothing. The brain is an association machine, but association have to be created in a smart way. Having an object with very few association links would not give a deep understanding of it. But what would be even worse is to have an object associated with everything, with lots of stuff. This would not only make these millions of associations pointless, but it would totally overload the overconnected object, leading to, in computer terms, system failure. When many concepts are jumbled into the same word, they make it useless because it doesn't bring clarification and understanding. It only breeds confusion. And we have always been striving for objectivity and clarity in the game of life, in our ways of understanding the world. But over time, I noticed, if you ask people questions like, work in the Ministry of Education, I have no idea what you really do. What do you do all day? One of my favorite questions. What do you do all day? This is the question that bypasses all the bullshit in life. And every time when this happened, I realized how overloaded the word work actually is. It can mean millions of different things. But then I had one more dot to connect. One day I realized that the brain probably doesn't know how to deal properly with useless, overloaded objects in itself. Let's try to put ourselves in our brain's shoes and see how it views itself and the world as a system. The brain is this ever-improving, constantly firing mesh of neurons that has the purpose of delivering the most useful output while not experiencing major failure as a system. Every brain structure, including the ones representing words, is connected to other structures in connections driven by association. But what happens when the local center of work needs to light up because we heard or we think about this word? The existential risk prevention system of the brain does not allow it to function as intended because it would trigger so many connections to be lighted up simultaneously that we risk a system overload. Too much stuff happening at once. Too much parallelism, so to speak. So a theory is that the brain artificially suppresses activity in these word centers. This is why we call them trap words. Every time you say, hear, read, or write this word, it's a trap. What happens? Your thought process dies and is restarted. In, of course, totally not accurate computer terms. When we start it, we get the brain autopilot finishing the thought with whatever shallow content it can due to it being an autopilot. Since it would be very demotivating and confusing to feel how this self-preservation mechanism kicks all the time, the brain hides what is actually happening from you and it's left in the subconscious. It turns out that these generic words like work are not just useless, like we all feel they are on some level. Like if it's too generic, it doesn't really mean anything. The nuance is lost. But they're also harmful. This is the thing that we discovered that's really valuable. They're not just useless, but they're harmful to our thought process in an invisible way. They disrupt our thoughts, leaving behind no evidence of their failure, which, when it's ongoing, is very harmful because small pieces of harm accumulate over time and they prevent us from forming the so much needed intuition about the concept. You may ask, humans are so good in so many things, especially intellectually. We developed this complex language. How did this stupid situation come to be? The thing is, when humans first evolved language, the world was a very different place. Life was simpler. So language, and specifically the brain center responsible for language, evolved a very simple structure needed for then and there. And it was mostly one concept equals one word. And this structure worked wonders because life was simple. There was bison, human, animal, food. There were category words like food and clothes that can be many different kinds. And there were words that represented exactly one thing, but there were no rich concepts like work or business. While life was simple, this structure worked wonders and helped humans advance compared to other animals because language helped us coordinate, cooperate, and this is how we took over the world. Because humans are not in any way stronger or in any way fitter than other animals. Our superpower is actually our brains, which allow us to cooperate. Our superpower is cooperation. However, when we advanced and built a more and more complicated world, we got concepts that didn't fit into one word or even a sentence. We got stuff that needed a whole paragraph to explain and would just confuse you if you didn't understand other concepts before you understood this one. And when life got more complex, dynamic, and interconnected, those complicated concepts got more and more interrelated. What do we do with those? Did we evolve a different language structure or brain structure to accommodate them? Of course not, because our brains and ourselves didn't have time to evolve for this. So we used the old ways, we did what we always do, we slapped a single word on all of those and called it a day, just like before. Due to their importance, they slowly became cornerstone words in our language, categories of their own: education, work, career, business, money, relationship, religion. But the cornerstone can only be one if it brings clarity and simplicity, if it brings intuitive understanding, if it is understood at a level deep enough so that all the references to it from related nodes return a definition simple enough that it clarifies the connection, not buries them in one big confused mess. You know what your brain hates the most? It's being confused. So when your thoughts touch these centers of confusion, that were supposed to be centers of clarity but have turned into centers of confusion, the brain just silently blocks to protect itself, leading to rich, nuanced responses from our autopilot like, hey, how is work? Fine. And this is how a lot of our conversations go. They don't go as deep as they could, not just because we lack the will to have a good, deep conversation, it's because we lack the language. The brain is a structure you need long term, and it has the main goal of protecting itself from confusion so you don't go crazy. That's normal. If you don't want to go through the risk of analyzing overcomplicated concepts in depth, or heaven forbid, their development in time, which is even more complex. Since this mental block happens every time we encounter the trap word, we cannot develop an intuition about it. This problem remains invisible because it always hides from itself. This overloaded concept just turns into a mental black hole, sucking any related productive thoughts out of you, becomes a hidden obstacle on your path to clarity and understanding reality. Failing to understand and navigate these cornerstone topics without a clear reason may cause anxiety and inadequacy feelings for something that is not your fault in the slightest. It's biology. You are born with it. So don't blame yourself for not managing this properly. It's not you. What happens? We copy the understanding of these all-important concepts from people around us and popular culture, with the hope that they know better. Let's just copy from another, what can go wrong? But every other person has the exact same problem. It's built into our biology, and they are just as confused, and the same words make them block too. So we call this overlaying confusion with many cornerstone topics the fog. It's just like a fog. It's invisible to those in it. How can we suppose everyone is wrong? First, you must accept the fact that everyone is wrong about almost everything. Biology just didn't prepare us for modern life. Popular culture is wrong too, because we created it, we're wrong, so popular culture is wrong too. Now that we admitted that the fog exists and we are very often wrong about cornerstone topics, how do we make ourselves see through the fog and prevent it from being denser? What are the good and the bad forces that navigate you through the fog? There's obviously the good force of good people who somehow see where the fog and want to clarify and explain. All the good mentors, but unfortunately a small minority of people who have learned how to handle the fog. We would like to believe that the founders of I Grow Younger are in this minority and can help you see through the fog. There are evil people who see through the fog, and since they're evil, want to take advantage of your delusions. For example, populist politicians who very well know how things work, but they also know that most other people don't have an intuition about how things work and they manipulate them. We are lucky that they are a very small minority, but they may cause great harm if they get in a position of power, so we must be very wary of those. Unfortunately, there are also systems that emerge to take advantage of the fog. For example, many universities should not exist in their current form, and the only reason they do is because the students don't understand the concepts of education and career well. There's no intuition about them. They just don't feel them. And since capitalism is always here to take your money, or the money of anyone, systems like for-profit universities emerge to take their money. Luckily, there's also chance. Chance makes sure to expose you to those eureka moments that suddenly bring clarity. And they are very valuable. You should always take them, always search for them, and depend on them to see through the fog. You will eventually see, or have already seen, through the fog for some trap words, even if only by chance. Maybe you realized after your last breakup that a relationship doesn't really exist. There are only the people in it, with their thoughts, feelings, and actions, their responsibilities to each other, but also to themselves and others with their relevant priorities. There is no relationship object in reality. It doesn't exist. And there's no responsibility to such an object. People who don't want to take personal responsibility invent the object relationship and attribute properties to it in order to dodge some of their personal responsibilities. And the reason they can do this is because our language has a word for it. If there wasn't a word for relationship, you wouldn't be able to do it because there wouldn't be an object to use to run away from our responsibilities. So maybe you understand this one, but the other trap word may be completely different. You may see through the fog of the relationship trap now, but does this help you handle money or work? The problem is that the black hole of every trap word has its separate strong resistance, and a lot of brain rewiring is needed to go through all of them and reframe everything so that the trap words are not holding you back. But once you realize that this concept is real at all, then the truth cannot be unseen. Here are the golden questions. How do we turn this realization about language and the current flawed models into a self-help system that everyone can use for their own growth? Even if there is bad influence like people around who don't even realize the word is there, or downright even evil manipulation. How do we create a helpful structure that includes the most important concepts and doesn't have any cornerstones that are trap words, even though they are the most commonly used? And how do we include into this structure the objectivity and science of life and the subjectivity of our internal world at the same time? I believe there is only one fundamental way forward. Love language or hate it for the trap words, it's not perfect, it's the only one we got. So we need much better cornerstone words. We need to start using other words for the building blocks of life. Then we will be able to deconstruct all trap words using our new fundamental structure and actually understand the concepts behind them. Wrong and confusing relations will vanish and new ones will be born in your brain, ones we can intuitively feel. This is what defines I Grow Younger. We use a combination of psychology, evolutionary biology, philosophy, and the vast personal experience of our founders to reframe parts of language itself. We don't invent mumbo-jumbo terminology to seem like experts, which is what people with higher egos do. We use the same words like you: chaos, structure, hunter, sheep, inertia. We all know intuitively what those mean. They have just one clear meaning. We don't use trap words if we can avoid them, because they have already done enough harm. When having to talk about a trap word like money, we have an entire article and video deconstructing the mess. We construct and deconstruct until we finally have a working model of the mess that is the world, one that our ancient intuition can handle, unlike the current one broken by the trap words. Then we use this model to reframe everything from love to money to smartphones and hopefully make you immune to the fog. We use basic concepts like structure, space, time, love, fear, truth, and freedom. They are our building blocks. They should hopefully mean the same to almost all people, but we do some defining just in case. And then we construct. We invite you to be part of this special journey. It will take you some time to master the building blocks and the relations. This is not a 1 minute or 1 hour solution to your life challenges. But then an amazing moment will eventually come when you have a deep, intuitive, gut feeling understanding of the world. One that has no trap words, centers of confusion. The black holes will be gone, never to return. You will finally be able to fully harness your intuition in any situation. This alone does not guarantee happiness, but it's the best tool we can give you to help yourself. From then on, your future will be largely in your hands. You have the power and responsibility to help others navigate the same foggy world you were once a part of. Isn't that a future worth fighting for?